Dad, we're having you assessed for dementia. The doctor will be here tomorrow morning. My daughter Catherine stood in my living room doorway, her husband Derek hovering behind her like a shadow. She said it so casually, as if she just announced she was picking up groceries. As if the last 72 years of my life, my career, my independence, my dignity could be evaluated and dismissed by some stranger she'd arranged to meet me. I'm sorry, what? I set down my coffee mug, careful to keep my hand steady even though something cold had settled in my chest. It's for the best, Dad. Catherine moved into the room, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. I'd refinished myself last spring. We've been noticing things. You're forgetting conversations. You left the stove on last month. And yesterday, you couldn't remember where you'd parked at the grocery store. I had forgotten where I'd parked. I'd also been distracted because I'd just gotten a call that my oldest friend Frank had been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. But I didn't mention that. Something in Catherine's tone made me want to keep my cards close. One incident doesn't mean... It's not just one incident. Derek stepped forward now, and I noticed he was carrying a folder. A folder. They'd come prepared. We have documentation, Doctor. Prasad has already reviewed your file and agrees an assessment is warranted. Dr. Prasad, my family doctor of 20 years. You contacted my doctor without telling me? We're listed as your emergency contacts, Catherine said, as if that explained everything. As if being listed on a form gave them the right to discuss my medical history behind my back. We have a responsibility to act when we see signs of cognitive decline. I'm 72 years old. I spent 38 years on the provincial court bench in British Columbia. I presided over thousands of cases, family law, mostly, custody disputes, protection orders, and yes, guardianship hearings for adults deemed incapable of managing their own affairs. I know exactly what having you assessed means. I know exactly where this road leads. What time is the doctor coming? I asked, keeping my voice level. 10 o'clock. We'll be here too, of course. Catherine's smile didn't reach her eyes. To provide context. After they left, I sat in my chair, the same leather armchair I'd been sitting in for 30 years, and looked around my home. The home I'd bought with my late wife, Jennifer, in 1982. The home where we'd raised Catherine and her younger brother, Thomas. The home where Jennifer had died, 3 years ago this November, after 46 years of marriage. Everything was in order. My bills were paid, my lawn was mowed, my checkbook balanced to the penny. I'd made dinner reservations for next week with Frank before we'd gotten his diagnosis. I had a dentist appointment in 2 weeks. I was volunteering at the community center on Thursdays, teaching new immigrants about the Canadian legal system. I wasn't losing my mind, but my daughter thought I was, or wanted people to think I was. I picked up my phone and called Thomas in Toronto. He answered on the third ring. Hey, Dad, everything okay? Your sister was just here. She says she's arranged for me to have a dementia assessment tomorrow. Silence. Then, she what? Have you noticed anything concerning about my memory? Dad, you called me last week and recited the entire starting lineup of the 1,993 Blue Jays from memory. Your mind is sharp as ever. What's Catherine playing at? That's what I needed to know. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept thinking about the folder Derek had been holding. Documentation, he'd said. What documentation? I'd seen enough fraudulent evidence in my career to know that paperwork could be manufactured, manipulated, made to say whatever someone needed it to say. At 10 the next morning, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find a woman in her 40s, professional looking, with a warm smile that seemed genuine. Mr. Sullivan? I'm Dr. Lisa Chen. Your daughter arranged for this assessment. Catherine and Derek appeared from their car parked at the curb. Of course, they'd come early, waited outside like vultures. Please, come in, I said. The assessment took 2 hours. Dr. Chen was thorough, I'll give her that. Memory tests, clock drawing, word recall, following multi-step instructions, naming objects, explaining proverbs. She asked about my daily routine, my hobbies, whether I managed my own finances. Catherine interjected constantly. He forgot our lunch date last Tuesday. I hadn't forgotten. She'd never confirmed it. He gets confused about what day it is. I'd asked once if it was Wednesday or Thursday during a holiday week. He repeats himself. Everyone repeats themselves sometimes. Derek added his own observations. He seems disoriented when we visit. I wasn't disoriented. I was wondering why they visited so frequently, so suddenly, after months of barely calling. Dr. Chen thanked me for my time and said she'd compile her report within a few days. After she left, Catherine lingered. We want you to know we're here for you, Dad. Whatever the assessment shows, we'll support you. That's very kind, I said. I didn't mean it. After they left, I sat down at my computer. 38 years as a judge teaches you that the truth is usually hidden in the details. Financial records, paper trails, inconsistencies in testimony. I'd built a career on finding those details. I started with Dr. Prasad. I called his office and asked to speak with him directly. When his receptionist said he was with a patient, I mentioned I was a retired judge concerned about a potential breach of medical confidentiality. That got me transferred. William, Dr. Prasad sounded tired. I got a call from your daughter last week. She said you'd asked her to contact me about memory concerns. I asked her. Raj, I didn't ask her to do anything. Another silence. Longer this time. She said you'd been forgetting things. That you'd requested she speak to me on your behalf because you were embarrassed. I never said that. I see. His voice had changed. Sharper now. She asked me to review your file for signs of cognitive decline. I told her I couldn't discuss your medical information without your consent, but I could note her concerns in your file. I didn't realize. He trailed off. What did you note in my file? That your daughter had called expressing concerns about memory issues. That was all. I specifically wrote that this was family reported, not observed by me during our last appointment. William, I would never have suggested an assessment based solely on a family member's unverified claims. Did she mention the name of the doctor doing the assessment? No. Who did she bring in? Dr. Lisa Chen. I don't know that name. Let me check the College of Physicians and Surgeons database. I heard typing. There are 3 Dr. Lisa Chens registered in BC. One's a dermatologist, one's in pediatrics, and one is interesting. She's licensed, but she specializes in private geriatric assessments. Her clinic website advertises comprehensive capacity evaluations for families concerned about elderly relatives. Does that seem unusual to you? Put it this way, in my 30 years of practice, when I've referred patients for cognitive assessment, I've sent them to neurologists or geriatric psychiatrists at the hospital, not to private clinics that advertise to concerned families. He paused. William, what's going on? I'm not sure yet, but I'm going to find out. I spent the afternoon doing what I'd done hundreds of times from the bench, investigating. First, I checked my bank accounts. Everything seemed normal at first glance, but then I noticed something. 3 months ago, there had been an inquiry into my account from a mortgage broker. I hadn't applied for a mortgage. I owned my home outright. I called the bank. After navigating automated menus and security questions, I finally reached someone who could access my account history. Yes, Mr. Sullivan, there was a credit inquiry from Coastal Mortgage Solutions in August. They were verifying your assets and income for a loan application. I didn't apply for any loan. Oh, well, someone did. They had your SIN and date of birth. Would you like me to flag this as potential fraud? Not yet. Can you tell me anything else about this inquiry? Let me see. The application was for a reverse mortgage on your property. It was declined because... Oh, here it is. The applicant claimed to have power of attorney but couldn't produce the documentation when requested. My hands were shaking now, but not from age. From anger. Can you tell me who contacted them? I don't have that information, but I can provide you with Coastal Mortgage's contact details if you'd like to follow up. I called Coastal Mortgage. The broker, a cheerful-sounding woman named Amanda, confirmed that someone had indeed inquired about a reverse mortgage on my property. They said they were your daughter and had power of attorney to manage your affairs due to declining health. When I asked for the POA documents, they said they'd send them, but never did. Without proper documentation, we can't process anything. But they seemed very keen. They asked how much equity we could release based on the property value. How much did they say the property was worth? They had a recent appraisal. Let me pull up the file. Yes, here it is. $1.8 million. Beautiful home you have there, Mr. Sullivan. Waterfront properties in Victoria are really holding their value. After I hung up, I sat very still. Someone and I had a pretty good idea who had gotten my property appraised, had attempted to take out a reverse mortgage against my home, had been stopped only because they didn't have power of attorney. Yet, I thought about the dementia assessment, about Dr. Chen's specialty and capacity evaluations, about what happens when someone is deemed incapable of managing their own affairs. In British Columbia, if a person is found mentally incapable, the court can appoint a committee, someone to make decisions on their behalf. Financial decisions, medical decisions, where they live, whether they keep their home or whether it gets sold for their own good. Catherine wasn't trying to help me. She was trying to take control of a $1.8 million property. And she was using the legal system, my legal system, the one I'd served for nearly 4 decades to do it. I pulled out my old briefcase, the one I'd carried to court for 38 years. It still had my business cards in the side pocket, retired now. But the contact information was still good. I had colleagues, friends who were still on the bench, lawyers I'd worked with, who now specialized in exactly this kind of case. But first, I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. I called the land title office and requested a copy of my property records. They could mail it, but I drove down and picked it up in person. Everything seemed normal. The title was still solely in my name, no liens, no encumbrances. But there was something new, a caveat, filed 2 months ago. It claimed there was a dispute over the property that needed to be resolved before any transactions could proceed. A caveat filed by Catherine Sullivan, claiming an interest in the property based on promised inheritance and financial contributions to property maintenance. I'd never promised her the property, and the only contribution she'd made to property maintenance was complaining about my gardening choices. That evening, Thomas called back. I did some digging, Dad. Catherine's in financial trouble, serious trouble. Derek's company went under 6 months ago. They remortgaged their house twice and they're about to lose it. She's been asking friends for loans. And get this, she called me in July, asking if I'd be willing to go in on helping you downsize. She said you'd mentioned wanting to sell the house and move into something smaller. I never said that. I know. I told her you love that house, that you and Mom built a life there. She dropped it, and I didn't think anything of it at the time. But now it makes sense. What are you going to do? What I should have done the moment she mentioned that assessment. I'm going to build a case. The next morning, I visited my own doctor, not Dr. Prasad. I didn't want to put him in an awkward position. I went to a clinic I'd never been to and paid for a private assessment. Cognitive testing. Blood work to rule out any underlying conditions that might affect mental function. The works. The doctor, a young woman probably half my age, seemed almost amused. Mr. Sullivan, your cognitive function is completely normal for your age. Better than normal, actually. Your recall is excellent. Your reasoning is sound. If anything, you're sharper than most of my patients half your age. Would you be willing to put that in writing? Of course. Are you concerned about something specific? My daughter is trying to have me declared mentally incapable. Her expression changed. I see. Yes, I can absolutely provide a comprehensive report. And if you need me to testify to these findings, I will. Next, I visited my lawyer. Robert Chang had been a young articling student when I'd first met him in court 25 years ago. Now he was a partner at one of Victoria's most respected firms, specializing in elder law. Judge Sullivan. He stood up when I entered his office, still using my title even though I'd been retired for 8 years. What can I do for you? I laid out everything. The assessment, the mortgage inquiry, the property appraisal, the caveat, the financial trouble Catherine was in. I showed him the documentation I'd gathered. Robert's expression grew grimmer with each revelation. This is elder financial abuse, textbook case, and the attempted reverse mortgage fraud. That's criminal. I know. I presided over cases like this for years. I never thought. I stopped. took a breath. I never thought my own daughter would do this to me. What do you want to do? I want to protect myself. Legally. I want to make sure she can't do this. And I want to know exactly what she's planning. I can help with that. First, we'll file to remove the caveat. Second, we'll draft an enduring power of attorney, naming someone you trust, not Catherine, to handle your affairs, if you ever do become incapable. Third, we'll get a restraining order, preventing her from accessing your medical records or making any claims about your capacity. And fourth, he paused. Fourth, we gather everything and we wait for her to make her move. Because she will. She's invested too much in this now. Won't she be suspicious when the caveat gets removed? Probably. But that's when we'll see what she's really willing to do. Over the next 2 weeks, I became my own investigator. I installed a security camera at my front door. I started recording phone calls. I documented every interaction with Catherine, every visit, every conversation. She called 3 times asking about Dr. Chen's report. I told her I hadn't heard anything yet. That wasn't true. Dr. Chen had sent her report directly to Catherine, not to me. Robert had gotten a copy through legal channels. It was damning. It claimed I showed significant signs of cognitive impairment and lack of insight into my condition. It recommended a full guardianship hearing. It was also full of inaccuracies. It claimed I'd been unable to name the current prime minister. I'd named him correctly. It said I couldn't manage my finances. I'd been managing them perfectly for decades. It stated I'd gotten confused about the date multiple times during our session. I hadn't. Dr. Chen's report was designed to get me declared incapable, and Catherine had paid her to write it. The confrontation came on a Tuesday afternoon. Catherine and Derek arrived unannounced. I saw them on my security camera and made sure my phone was recording in my pocket. "Dad, we need to talk." Catherine sat down without being invited. Derek stood by the door, arms crossed. "About what?" "Doctor Chen's report came back. Dad, I'm so sorry, but it's not good news. She found significant cognitive impairment. She's recommending we pursue guardianship." "Guardianship? It's for your own protection. You can't live alone anymore. You can't make financial decisions. We need to sell this house and move you somewhere safe, somewhere with support." "And where would that be?" "There's a wonderful assisted living facility in Langford. We've already toured it. You'd have your own room, meals provided, activities." "How much does this wonderful facility cost?" She hesitated. "That's not important. We'll handle everything." "By selling my house?" "The house is too much for you, Dad. You said so yourself." "No, Catherine. I didn't. I've never said that. In fact, I've never said anything of the sort." Derek shifted uncomfortably. Catherine's expression hardened. "Dad, we're trying to help you. Dr. Chen's report is clear. You need care." "Dr. Chen's report is fiction." "What?" "I had my own assessment done by a real neurologist. At the hospital, my cognitive function is completely normal." I pulled out a folder. My turn to come prepared. I also checked with my bank. "Someone tried to take out a reverse mortgage on my property 3 months ago. They claimed to have power of attorney." "They didn't." "Care to explain that?" The color drained from Catherine's face. Derek's jaw tightened. "I also found the caveat you filed on my property. The one claiming you have some legal interest in my home based on promised inheritance and financial contributions. Both claims are false." "Dad, I can explain." "No, you can't. Because I know exactly what this is. I spent 38 years on the bench, Catherine. I presided over hundreds of guardianship cases. I know financial abuse when I see it. And I know fraud. You're confused. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're in financial trouble. Derek's company failed. You're about to lose your house. And you decided the solution was to have me declared incompetent, sell my home, and take control of the proceeds. The assisted living facility was just a convenient excuse." Derek stepped forward. "You can't prove any of that." "Actually, I can." I pulled out more documents. Bank records showing the mortgage inquiry, the appraisal you had done on my property, the emails between you and Dr. Chen. Yes, I have those too. She's not just a doctor, is she? She's a paid expert witness who writes whatever reports her clients need. I found 3 other cases where her assessments were challenged and found to be fraudulent. Catherine was crying now. But they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of anger. You've always been selfish. Mom wanted this house to go to us. She said so. Your mother wanted you to inherit when I die, Catherine. She didn't want you to steal it while I'm still alive. We need this. We're losing everything. We have children to think about your grandchildren. Don't they matter to you? Of course they matter. But you're not doing this for them. You're doing this for yourself. And you were willing to destroy my life, my independence, my dignity to do it. I stood up. I've filed to remove your caveat. I've reported the attempted mortgage fraud to the police. I've sent Dr. Chen's fraudulent report to the College of Physicians and Surgeons. And I've drafted a new power of attorney naming your brother Thomas as my representative. You have no claim to my property, my finances, or my medical decisions. Dad, I'm not finished. You have 2 choices. You can leave now, and we can try to salvage some kind of relationship, though it will never be what it was. Or you can fight this, and I will take you to court. I will expose every fraudulent document, every lie, every manipulation, and I will win. You know I will. I didn't spend 4 decades on the bench without learning how to build an unbeatable case. Derek grabbed Catherine's arm. We should go. This isn't over, Catherine said. Yes, it is. They left. I sat down, my hands finally shaking now that it was over. Not from fear, from the weight of it all. My own daughter, my own child had tried to take everything from me. Thomas flew in from Toronto the next day. We sat on my deck, overlooking the water, the view Jennifer and I had fallen in love with 40 years ago, and I told him everything. I can't believe she did this, he said. I couldn't either. That's why I didn't see it coming until it was almost too late. What happens now? Now I live my life. I keep this house. I keep my independence. And I try to remember that I have one child who still cares about me. Always, Dad. Always. The legal aftermath took months. The caveat was removed. The police investigated the mortgage fraud but ultimately declined to press charges. Not enough evidence to prove Catherine had been the one to make the inquiry, though we both knew she had. Dr. Chen's license was suspended pending a full investigation. 3 other families came forward with similar complaints. Catherine sent one email, a month after our confrontation. It said she was sorry, that she'd been desperate, that she hoped someday I could forgive her. I never responded. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. Some betrayals cut too deep. I still live in my home. I still volunteer on Thursdays. I still have dinner with friends. Frank passed away 4 months after his diagnosis, and I spoke at his funeral. I told stories about our friendship, about the lives we'd built, about growing old with dignity. I'm 73 now. My memory is fine. My mind is sharp. I wake up every morning in the home I shared with the love of my life, and I make my own decisions about my own life. That's all I ever wanted. That's all any of us deserve. But sometimes, late at night, I think about the daughter I raised, the little girl who used to climb into my lap and ask me to read her stories, the teenager who came to me for advice, the young woman who cried at her wedding when I walked her down the aisle. I wonder when she changed. Or maybe she didn't change. Maybe I just never saw who she really was. Either way, I survived. I stood my ground. I protected what was mine. And if that makes me selfish in her eyes, so be it. After 73 years on this earth, after 38 years serving justice, after losing my wife and nearly losing my independence, I've earned the right to be selfish about my own life. The sunset over the water is particularly beautiful tonight. Jennifer would have loved it. I raise my coffee mug. I still remember where I keep the coffee. Catherine and I toast to survival, to independence, to knowing that even at 73, I'm nobody's victim, not even my own daughter's.